Coming up, a scathing new report on the effort to recall L.A. County District Attorney George Gascon. Jennifer Van Laar from RedState on her exclusive story alleging major mismanagement in the recall campaign.
Then we're joined by a key player in the recall campaign who says that report has it wrong.
Emotional testimony today from Vanessa Bryant in her lawsuit against the L.A. County Sheriff's Department for taking photos of Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash.
Idris Elba starring in one of the new movies in theaters this weekend. What should you screen or stream, and what should you skip? Movie critic Gray Drake is here with her reviews.
You're watching Fox 11 News Special Report.
Good evening, happy Friday, and welcome to Fox 11 News Special Report. I'm Elex Michaelson.
And I'm Marla. Tellez. We have gotten a whole lot of feedback and questions about our interview with Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon.
We talked to him the day after he survived a second recall attempt. Do you see this as a vindication, or do you see this as, okay, it's time to change some of the policies?
I'm not sure that it's a vindication. Look, I think a sign of good leadership, in fact, I think a sign of being a good person is to continue to evolve and to learn and to adjust.
Now, exclusive reporting from the conservative political website RedState detailing allegations of mismanagement by the recall campaign. The article's title says it all. Recall Gascon Committee knowingly turned in invalid petition signatures, misled donors and volunteers.
Joining us now is the reporter behind that story, RedState's managing editor, Jennifer Van Laar. Thanks for being with us. For people that may not have read it, it is a lengthy article. What's the most important point?
The most important point is that they knew, according to a whistleblower who's on the campaign, who I spoke to personally, and some other sources, that they knew fairly early on that they weren't even close to meeting signature goals, that they were counting things that they know were duplicates or not registered voters within those totals that they were giving to donors and volunteers, and that they were projecting such a high validation rate that it was something that's almost unheard of in the industry, that they would have had to get basically 80% of their signatures verified by the county in order to make this the threshold of signatures.
Well, we spoke to the campaign manager on July the 6th, the day that those signatures were actually turned in. Gregory Foster joined us here at 7 o'clock. We asked him specifically about the verification process. Here's how confident he was. When it comes to the validation of these signatures, how confident do you really feel?
I feel very confident. The reason for we had our own data verification firm that went through with the voter file, made sure that if there was any issues with any people who signed it, we went and chased them to fix what the error was.
Okay, when it was all said and done, they were short by about 46,000, but overall, almost 200,000. I know we have that information to put up so that viewers at home can take this in. Almost 200,000 signatures were invalidated. But according to you, Jennifer, you say you speak of a whistleblower that tells you that they knew this going in?
They did. And even Steve Cooley was on a radio show this morning, and he said that over the 4th of July weekend, when they brought in over 60,000 signatures over that weekend, probably 100,000, that they didn't do any pre-screening on those because they didn't have time. And the results bear that out. I mean, 88,000 signatures kicked out for not being registered voters, over 44,000 duplicates, 32,000, I think, that had different addresses on the petition than they had within the voter file. So if they had the voter file and they were chasing people down, that just doesn't add up.
You know, one thing that you said that's quite something that the recall organization is very upset about. You said, quote, the recall George Gascon effort failed because the committee's purse strings were controlled by political consultants who were being paid by the campaign and who contracted with vendors on the basis of cronyism or financial gain instead of competency. They say that that's false, that that's defamatory, that their people are ethical, that everything was on the up and up, and sort of how dare you say that? How do you respond?
I mean, if I were in their position, I would probably respond the same way. They came out kind of in a preemptive PR campaign before the county was even through counting the signatures, misstating what the recall law provides, and to get people upset and direct that anger at Dean Logan instead of people who weren't doing their jobs correctly. The signature gathering firm that they hired is in legal trouble in multiple states.
Now, beyond, the whistleblower that you speak of, Elex and I have talked to people in charge of the campaign who are upset about the reporting, and they simply point out that they were never contacted for you for comment. There's one woman specifically named in your reporting, and you never reached out to her. Why not?
I did reach out to someone with one of the top people at the campaign who I spoke to on off the record and on background to let them know the things that this whistleblower had said over 24 hours before I published the story.
So what do you think in the bottom line here is that went wrong here? I mean, you're not alleging that the intention was bad. Are you just basically saying that it was incompetence? And because of that, all these people who donated their money, or all the people who feel like they've been victimized because of George Gascon's policies, are not going to see a recall?
I don't think that anyone started out with bad intentions at all. Obviously, even if it's your job and you make money at it, you still want to be good at your job. And everyone understands what a disaster George Gascon's policies have been in Los Angeles. So I don't think that was it at all. I think they didn't follow the recommendations of people who got the Newsom recall qualified or the gas tax proposition on the ballot, both of which were huge efforts. They didn't follow those recommendations of who to hire, who could do a good job, and went with this firm that had a lot of shady things going on in the past and even currently. So that doesn't smack of trying to hire the best to make sure that this gets done.
But are you going as far as to say that how this was handled was unethical?
There were definitely unethical parts. I have multiple people who have told me that during the last 6 days to 10 days, when there were the attestations that had to be filled out on each page of the petition, and it was supposed to be filled out by the person who got those signatures, and it has to be filled out in their own handwriting completely under penalty of perjury, that they were having people in the office just fill that out because people hadn't done it correctly, and that deputy DAs were in there watching that and didn't stop it.
Jennifer Van Laar, a lot in that article. You can read it for yourself at RedState.com. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so what does the other side have to say? The Gascon Recall Campaign Committee. Joining us is a key member of that committee, and a former deputy DA in the county of Los Angeles, Kathy Cady. Thank you for taking the time to respond. So what is your response to what you just heard?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I am one of the 6 co-chairs that were on the Recall DA George Gascon campaign. And what I would say is that the people who worked on the campaign absolutely have high ethics. Cassandra Vandenberg especially has very, very high ethics. And so any suggestion that we were doing anything illegal or that the firms were somehow in trouble or shady, we reject completely. So what I can tell you is that we worked very hard to raise whatever money we could to make sure that we could pay for paid signature gatherers, because as you may know, anytime you're doing a recall campaign, that's part of what you have to work with, is to get people who can get those signatures. You can't get them online. They have to be done in person. We had a number, hundreds of actual volunteer signature gatherers. I was one of them. And then, of course, we also did a very, very robust campaign where we mailed out trying to get signatures in. And through all of those efforts, we did hire 2 firms that tried to help us with the verification process. And so any suggestion that we did not go through and try to take out duplicate signatures, we actually reject. We did do that. I know that we did that because I was also involved in that. And so we did our very best to make sure that everything that we turned in did include people from Los Angeles County who were registered voters, and that we took out duplicate signatures. So any suggestion to the contrary, we completely disagree with.
Did you potentially run out of time to do that towards the end when there's this mad rush to try to get all these signatures in? Maybe the last days of the campaign you weren't able to do that because you simply didn't have time?
Well, certainly the fact that the weekend before was a holiday didn't help. But what I would say is that we knew all along that gathering 566,000 signatures was a heavy lift. Anyone who ever suggested otherwise was perhaps fooling themselves. So we knew it was a heavy lift. We knew that it would be hard work, which is why we gathered so many people, and there was so much energy towards this because, as your former guest also said, Gascon's policies have really been devastating the county. So we all worked together very hard, and yes, at the very end, we were getting final signatures. And what I will say is that on the very last day when we had to turn in signatures, there were 30,000 signatures that we didn't even really get to go through at all to try to take out duplicates. They were delivered to the registrar recorder at the same time that we were delivering the petitions that we brought. And so all we could do really was to try to put them in a box and then deliver them to the registrar recorder. So of those, of course, we did not have an opportunity to go through and to, verify or validate. But for the rest of them, we absolutely did. We used firms, we paid for the firms, and then we had people who were trying to take out the duplicate signatures and to turn in signatures only from LA County registered voters.
Well, it is a tall task, and we know all of the efforts that went into it, and we appreciate you joining us tonight for the other side. Former Deputy DA in Los Angeles County, Kathy Cady, thank you so much for being with us.